Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first LinkedIn Live of 2025. I'm Rob Hanna, and today I'm super excited to be joined by the one and only Dimi. He is an expert when it comes to all things social media and community and strategy. He's had a remarkable 6-year journey at TikTok, where he played a pivotal role in shaping the digital landscape when it comes to all things content creation. And during his time, he was also involved with TikTok Shop UK, and he empowered creators to monetize their influence, which is something that we're going to be talking a little bit more about later on today. And he's got some really interesting expertise across relationships building online, community, social shopping, which again is the topic of the conversation today, and how platforms are transforming commerce and community. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. So before we dive in, I want to just know a little bit of a question that we ask all of our people on the show, which is a Suits-related question.
Okay.
Have you seen the TV series Suits?
I mean, I have seen it, but I haven't continued watching it.
So we ask a lot of the people that come on our main podcast how
Mhm.
they would rate it on the scale of 1 to 10 compared to a lawyer. Appreciating you're not a lawyer, but what would you give it as a rating from your understanding of if you've seen it?
I would give it a rating as of entertaining, and I would give it like a solid 8.
Solid 8 for entertainment. We're here for that. So anyway, welcome, and it's lovely to be collaborating with you. Let's get into it. Let's talk about some of the shifting trends. What is driving this big shift from traditional e-commerce to immersive, community-driven shopping experiences, and how are you seeing platforms really leveraging this trend?
That's a very good question, and I think there are kind of like a couple of elements which we see here. I think first of all there is like the consumer expectation, right? Modern consumers nowadays demand more than just a simple product catalog. They crave kind of like personalized experience, storytelling. They want to connect with things. So shopping is no longer just about purchasing. It's about discovery and inspiration and creating this emotional connection. And it's all about authenticity, and this is like kind of like a key term like within the whole social shopping world. It's about because authenticity has become essentially like the key purchasing driver, and creators, sorry, consumers actually like really crave for that, and they want to
Yeah.
have kind of like something that's authentic, that they can relate to it. Then thinking about the shifts, I would think of, all the technology advancements that we have, right? Being it just, from switching to being more on our mobile, and having the capability actually to shop on our mobile and all those kind of things. And then this is just starting, but thinking about virtual reality and augmented reality, making, you want to buy a couch and then you want to see it already. So you take out your phone and you hoover around, or you want to trade, try your sunglasses on, or like any glasses, and then you just have the filters as well. Like, so this kind of like plays a lot of a shift into, making products more easy to, see if, they fit your personal interest. Then I would say also like, making it easy to buy things. So, one-click payments, anything around that. Like this is like removing blockers into anything that's payment related. You already like increase sales by X amount. Like it's kind of like a no-brainer. And then I would say like just generally on the social media platforms, like their influence and how they integrate those things. If it's like creating the social experience, actually offering the features and giving like everyone the opportunity like to buy and interact, kind of like it's a blurred line between social interaction and commerce, like on those platforms. And one thing, a trend that I see is just the behavioral trend, right? So post-pandemic shifts in the behavior having accelerated to wanting more social interaction online. So consumers are looking ways to connect online and then in the digital space. And I'd say like there is this growth of retailtainment where
Oh, I
you're
like
kind
that.
of like blending kind of like the shopping with the entertainment, and this kind of like creates the dynamic. And ways of how platforms can leverage this. As I said, they need to essentially integrate these type of functionalities. They need to give the features to the consumers and to the brands and to the sellers to essentially like kind of like make it happen. The social shopping experience. Then I'd say anything about personalization and algorithms, right? So this is actually where platforms come in handy because they can actually tailor things to your needs and to your preferences. And one more thing I'd say that's a huge role, it's of course the creator ecosystem, right? So influencers and creators are at the core of social shopping strategies. So giving those influencers and creators the opportunity or the tools actually to make everything happen, like being it like the affiliate links or like incentivizing them to drive sales, like this plays all into a role, and this is how actually platforms leverage this.
So much wisdom there that you just shared. And I think, you make so many points and things that I talk a lot about in terms of, firstly, removing friction, right? Convenience is king. So you talk about that in terms of, not having so many layers and making it complicated, because if you confuse people, you'll lose people. And yeah, you again, like you say, people want to have that more immersive experience, and in the future, it'll probably be in glasses, right? Won't it be the handheld device? Eventually we'll be moving away
I
from.
mean, they are already some on the market, but it's not like it's just more like content creation right now. But I'm sure eventually like things will change.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you talk to authenticity. I know we talk a lot about it, and people, it is a well trodden path, but, I always say ABA, always be authentic. And I think it's so true. I hadn't heard the expression retailtainment. It doesn't quite
I just
roll
made
off
it up.
yeah, it doesn't roll off the tongue quite as well as edutainment, but, it's,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
definitely there. And I think, again, regarding personalization, I always say when I'm doing speeches, specific is terrific. And I think obviously with AI and the way these back end things can function, the more lasered it can be and personalized, the better the experience. Okay, one of the things that's really important, particularly in a digitally collected and online world, connected world, is trust, right?
yeah.
And consumer trust. So how do platforms like a TikTok influence consumer trust and loyalty through their unique shopping ecosystems?
Um, I think that's, I mean, that's very like interesting to see, and I think you mentioned it already, and I'm gonna go back to it again. It's the authentic content, right? So,
Yeah.
um, TikTok thrives on authenticity. Like you see this raw, unpolished content, which is actually very relatable, and this actually allows creators and influencers on the platform to demonstrate like real life product applications, right? How things are made, being it an unboxing, right? Like I have you join me to this whole experience and seeing like how things are happening. And then you have like tutorials and day in a life. So actually, these are things that kind of like resonate with viewers to build trust. Like
Yeah.
if I can relate to the person just doing the normal things that I would do as well, then I can like put put myself into their shoes, and that's how kind of like trust you start building trust essentially. Um, then you have as well also the community engagement in general. Like it's not a one-way dialogue nowadays; it's like a two-way dialogue. So essentially, when it comes to trust, and especially like with shopping, it just gets more personal, right? People can comment on things, people interact with you, the influencer or creator or even the brand, they take the comments and they react to it. So it's kind of like a two-way communication, and this is kind of like what creates kind of like the other deep level of trust. And then the one other thing regarding community is essentially we are in a world where consumers are you're not just bombard consumers are actually part of it, and actually they have the opportunity to make their voice and opinions heard, right? And they can also be connected with being it with the brands or being it with the creators. So it's kind of like this whole intertwined ecosystem of everyone playing together. The other thing I think trust actually really like I'll go to to the point of virality.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see things going viral, and if something is going viral or like a product is going viral, you think, oh, this is popular, and people have trust in it, and I need to have it as well. So I think having kind of like a platform where virality is kind of like nature to it. I think this kind of like helps to build trust, to build trust. And I think the last bit, I'd call it, is actually what these platforms are very good at is humanizing the shopping. Essentially, like by centering the shopping experience around individuals, being it the creator or even the sellers, rather than faceless brands or like or any sort of communication where you don't know where it's coming from. Like platforms create this emotional connection that enhances essentially trust and loyalty.
Yeah, and it's so true, isn't it? That word emotion. I think if you can evoke an emotion in someone, it really does help. And I've seen that not just in sort of the shopping space, but in anything related to sort of content or whatever it might be. And if people can kind of imagine that or actually find that relatable, you're on for the win. You were touching on it there, sort of kind of intersections, but I want to talk about this sort of power dynamics, because
Yeah.
how do you think the rise, particularly of social shopping, which I'm paying a lot of attention to, is really reshaping the power dynamics between brands, influencers, and consumers?
I think we'll essentially, there are quite a few, three, I think I would say like, three things I see here. First of all, I think everything is shifting from brands to more influencers, right? In the
Yeah,
past, we know brands held a lot of control about the narrative, how they want to advertise things, how they want to shape the perception of customers with of a specific product or anything. But I think this is slightly switching to more influencers and creators, because these are actually, or they act actually as trusted intermediaries, right? They have the trust of their following, and this is what brings them, and back to my point, to humanize a brand, right? They
yeah.
actually are able to humanize new product that has been just launched on the market, because they are connected to it. They love the value of the brand or this specific product, and that's why they come back with the storytelling. They're like integrating the product into their daily lives and creating this emotional connection again with their audience. So I think brands now really will depend, or already depend, on influencers and conveying their value proposition. I touched upon earlier as well, and I think we will see a lot of more empowerment of consumers.
Yeah.
Um, Social shopping platforms, they just amplify those voices, and they're giving them essentially the tools to do it. Being it with them leaving reviews, being them with them engaging and interacting with the content that the brands is putting out there. So the ability to kind of like share their experiences, like a customer's experience, being it good and bad, can shift a lot of
Authentic.
power. And I think this is something that that we will still see like in the future. And this leads me also to the way of um, that we will see a more collaborative ecosystem of brands, influencers, and also like the consumers, doing kind of like co-creating things together. And it's not going to be linear, as in, okay, we do this, you do that, and we just expect this. It's going to be just like, let's see, or let's react, because sometimes, what happens is the consumers do the first move, right? And then it's a matter of the brand to be like, oh my god, they did this amazing thing, let's jump on it, let's pick up on this trend, and let's bring it into our marketing. And one actually like example of this reshaped dynamics is these TikTok viral campaigns. I mean, and I'm sure you have heard it, right? Like the TikTok made me buy it.
Yeah.
Like this is like something that's organically has already create this reach, that if you hear this slogan, I call it slogan, but I mean it's just like a saying, you already know it's about a product, it's going to be amazing, and I really want it. So essentially like having this, and this was just created by the community, right? It wasn't like created like, oh, a brand I'm gonna start it like TikTok made me buy it. It was just like, yeah, that's how it's essentially grew organically. And yeah, and I think this is kind of like a great example, and I think we will see more of that.
Yeah, and great example of just social listening, right? And seeing what's happening, and then sort of making sure that you're there at the table. And I love that you talk to sort of storytelling as well. Facts tell, stories sell, and it will continue to be until the end of time. In my opinion, storytelling is so powerful, and it's actually a skill that I'm continuously working on myself, and I think a lot of people should be really working on. I love that you talk to collaboration, and I actually had some people from I do a lot of legal focused content, obviously being in the legal lane, and people actually reaching out to me saying, "Hey, Rob, this is a little bit different, social shopping. Like, what's the view? What's the outreach in this?" And I'm like, look, collaboration is key, and I'm really taking and paying attention and want to learn from social media experts like yourself, and look at ways of widening that TAM, your total addressable market, and so I'm really pro collaboration, and trends and things that are happening, because I think we all need to stay curious, and I know you're super curious, but there's always challenges in business, right? And so, what are some of the key challenges businesses face when entering the social shopping space specifically, and how can they particularly overcome them to stand out?
Um, I mean, if you were 3 years ago when TikTok Shop started, then you would have like had the whole football field to yourself, right?
Yeah,
So now, I mean, of course, the market gets crowded. I mean, it's not overcrowded yet, but I'm sure this will change. So, what this leads is, of course, the content overload, right? So there will be like a lot of, I mean, if you want to start off like on shop, this gonna be like your challenge, right? The challenge is gonna be like you will have competition. It's not
yeah.
like you are the only one there. There are like creators making content, normal users making content, other brands making content. So it's really important for you to, um, think about, okay, what I want to deliver, what are the creatives, like, is it relevant, is it timely? So yeah, just build, your content schedule. If anyone needs any tips, I'm here to help, by the way. But any brand. So yeah, so that's kind of like the one challenge I think that they will face. The other challenge is essentially like, how to adopt at those platforms, right? Because there is like, yes, we have TikTok Shop, it's one platform, but there are more and more platforms emerging, right? So we have TikTok that's really focused on short videos. Then we have, for example, also Whatnot, which is like very related to real-time engagement and live streams. So it's going to be like there won't be a one size fits all approach. So you kind of like need to work your strategy according like to the platforms. And I think this is like kind of like a challenge where you would probably need to invest some time. Um, if you're starting new and if you don't have already like kind of like a loyal customer base or something, consumers going to be very skeptical, right? So you will struggle a little bit in the beginning to build trust, and consumers nowadays voice their opinion. So there might be like, trust issues that you might face. But I mean, if you have a good product, if your supply chain is really good, and if you believe in the values and have actually like proven well past concept, then I'm sure everything's going to be fine. It's just more like be aware just in case. But and actually they were like are very like new. I've seen a lot of new brands start on TikTok Shop and no one knew them, and they actually like became the most viral brands nowadays. So it's all about, do I tackle this, and if I tackle this, let's do it right. um,
And it's
and
where the
then,
attention is as well, right? Like that virality, like there's attention on TikTok Shop. So that's where your audience, your consumer is. So
yeah,
you need to be in the spaces and places where there is attention right now. And, I'm seeing, even certain content creators that are getting more views, more impressions than some of the national media
yeah,
over here. That's how powerful all of this should be, and why I'm really doubling down and paying attention to where the puck is going in various different things and businesses that I'm involved with.
yeah.
But I'm laser focused on community. It's the number one thing that keeps me getting out of bed every day. I'm very passionate about community and building it. So and I want to ask you, because obviously you've been highly successful in this, from a community building perspective, and you've touched on it, but how do social shopping platforms specifically create a deeper customer relationship compared to the traditional retail, given we're moving into this retailtainment, which we're going to use, by the way,
Yeah.
space.
I think it's the fact that you have like this real-time interaction,
Yeah.
right? It's immediate and it's transparent. Like you have all these Q&As, you have essentially like, the tools of going live, the common functionalities. And, everyone can, address their concerns. You can also like showcase your product, or, you can build trust with this. Essentially, like these tools and these functionalities are there to essentially create a community sense. People like each other because, or they like the other comments because they feel, oh, I had this exam experience. Like, I really am engaged with this. So, and the fact that you are not talking to one person, you're talking to this plethora of person, you can scale things up, right? People are globally, distributed, there is like, you can reach so many people, and just doing this via a platform, it just increases like the exponential of building like a more narrow knit global community. And there is of course the emotional connection if you have the actual brand behind it, and the brands show or interact with the audience and the viewers. Then of course the algorithm and personalization really helps finding the right people and engaging with them as well, and also creating this shoppable experience which is like super interesting for you. And the last bit I would say, like it's more like you have this full cycle moment again, right? You can share your feedback. Brands can actually take the feedback and say, hey, thanks to your feedback we did this, and it's like a full cycle loop. You can incentivize, there are certain things as an engagement where you can incentivize people to come back. I'll give you this discount, or this is happening, and this create kind of like this gamification element as well. And you just spark conversations, and like-minded people find each other. And one thing I think I would say, what's the difference between traditional retail is, I'd say traditional retail often relies on functional loyalty, which is essentially like convenience, price, and very proximity. Whereas social shopping platforms, on the other hand, aim kind of like to build a loyalty by engaging customers in a meaningful interaction and fostering kind of like a sense of belonging. So it's kind of like emotional loyalty versus functional loyalty.
Yeah, and I love how you phrase that, because I think that's bang on, isn't it? And you kind of build your tribe ultimately. And I love that you talk about gamification. We've got a Legally Speaking Club Discord community. We're always looking at ways that we can kind of gamify that, because it's WITFM, right? Everyone's favorite radio station. What's in it for me? And I think if you can really kind of think about that when you're putting your future consumers or people in your consumers first, I think you'll be very successful. A slight legal question, because obviously I have a legal community.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't have to be specifically, but for businesses in regulated industries, of course, law being one, there are various others. How might social shopping concepts, like we've been talking about real-time engagement and community connection, inspire innovation in client acquisition or potentially service delivery?
Um, so when I think about these regulated industries, such as law and traditional, I think they kind of like rely a lot of reputation, word of mouth, and
Yep.
referrals, right? Um, and I think with the social shopping concepts, like you mentioned, there is a new way of connecting with modern digital savvy audiences. Um, and if I think about innovation, right, it's we talked about humanizing a brand. We talked about humanizing shopping. Let's talk about humanizing legal services.
Yeah, that's
you
something
know,
all of my community. Yeah, I'm
breaking,
pushing for that.
essentially breaking stereotypes. Of being impersonal and inaccessible. Because I think this is.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say it, but this is how some people perceive it. And I think by adopting this, real life experience and talking to individuals and building like this community, it just creates like a deeper trust essentially, and there is like this responsiveness of community. So this is essentially like an innovation of you demystifying like all these things that legal services are not essentially, right? And then I think it's also something that you need to think about is this is something that will differentiate me from my competitors, right? Like if I'm doing this, or if I'll start, tomorrow doing it. It's like a modernized approach and incorporating those social shopping inspired tactics. It like helps kind of like being innovative and client focused in a way.
Yeah.
And you can have, you can showcase your niche expertise by, having specific blogs or video series about a topic that really cater to specific needs of the community. And if you don't try, you will not find out if there is like, if they like it or not. But I've seen a lot of great cases where lawyers have been like on platforms and they're like engaging with the community, and now they're bringing books out and they're booked out for the next 5 years. Like it's like crazy stuff, right?
Yeah.
And essentially, like, where are we heading, right? Who will be our future clients? Millennials and Gen Z is. So it's kind of like a natural thing to be like, oh, let's put all the biases aside and let me try something new. Because essentially, the millennials and the Gen Zs, they already engage with brands and services on social media. So like, if you are not there, like, you are kind of like, you're not part of the group. So
I wanted to share the content, but I also didn't want to share all my secrets, Dimi. So you're absolutely bang on, and you've got to be where the attention is. Like, I was one of the first in the UK to create a legal podcast, particularly in the legal recruiting space. And people now will be watching on from this, being like, "What's this guy up to?" When he's thinking legal services, whatnot, social selling, shopping,
yeah,
etc., etc. Because I see where the puck is going, right? And so I think you gave a lot of things there where I believe legal services and people in law and that humanization and community is going. And so yeah, we're going to be doing a lot of collaborations, I know, together in the future, and hopefully this is a little bit thought provoking for people, particularly in the legal industry, who might just be jumping onto LinkedIn for at the moment, thinking about what they need to do from a social media strategy. I think in terms of community engagement and actually services and B2C and B2B, you need to be paying attention to what these platforms like a TikTok and whatnot are doing. But there's always risk, and particularly in the legal world, they look at things from a risk perspective. So what are the potential risks and pitfalls for brands and creators on social shopping platforms, especially in terms of maybe reputational damage or sort of consumer backlash? You mentioned about sort of real-time feedback, but share a bit on the risks and pitfalls.
So I'll bring it back to the authenticity. So anything that can cause authenticity issues, which means like making misleading claims, like on the product, like something that it's actually not beneficial for, or it doesn't do, like, because this is actually like something that can cause you as someone promoting it and also the brand like a lot of backlash. Then if you have like a poor product quality, I mean, sorry, like, no one wants to have a product that's not working or doesn't do what it says. And I think the other bit would be more for creators. It's just like if you overuse kind of like the sponsorship element. I mean, there are two sides of it, right? Sometimes you see influencers and creators who are, we call them unboxers, right? So their whole content is about product and showcasing. So there you don't realize such things happening. But if you are like an entertainer and or a dancer, and then you just start putting products out there that are not related to your community or are not authentic to yourself, then this is kind of like an ick, and people like essentially see this as a no-go. Then I'd say like anything that's, I mean, this is like not a reputational or like a backlash thing. It's more like be aware about it. But it's like anything that's related to platform policies. Things change, algorithms change, maybe accounts get banned because they did something wrong, or videos get taken down. So if you are in this space, like, familiarize yourself with those things and be just prepared, or have like plan B's ready, like, to navigate the space, because this can always happen in that sense. We touched, I think, I don't know if we touched upon earlier, but I would say cultural sensitivity.
Very important.
If you are a global brand and you want to have like your audience to be inclusive across different markets, think about this. Like, how can you create this inclusivity? Like, don't abandon certain groups or anything. Like, be there for everyone. And the last bit I'd say is just avoiding making high visible mistakes, as in, unless it's purpose driven, because I can give you like an example. like sometimes this can cause like a lot of damage, and some things like, and talking about purposely things. I think it's purposely, but I don't know if you've seen like Puma. They've
Yep.
just changed kind of like the U to a V, and in India, and this is just purposely done, and they sparked like the conversation. But it was led to introduce this new ambassador that they have. I'm not going to say who it is, so you can actually go and look it up. But essentially, it's like it's super recent. So essentially, this is like a purpose-driven thing. But yeah, I
Yeah,
think
that's a great example, and I encourage people to go and check that one out as well. Final question before we wrap up. This has
yeah.
been really insightful, and it's sort of professional lessons, really. What lessons can lawyers, again, sticking with my legal community here, but other professionals as well, what lessons can they learn from the rapid growth of social shopping and building their personal brands,
Yeah.
or potentially engaging with their own audiences online?
I think by adapting these strategies, which we kind of talked about now on the social shopping sphere, I think they can just showcase their expertise with this. And what I mean, it's just kind of like giving insights into a modern engagement strategies, right? So by focusing, for example, on educational, authentic, and interactive content, lawyers can, be better service providers, and build this personal brand that they have, and maybe they can also attract a more digital savvy clients, which, I mean, you can have now, but in the future there will be not they might have big they might work for someone very big. So if they know you, then you have kind of like this connection to it. And um, yeah, you need to think about modernizing your client acquisition for a digital first world. And I think this is quite essential to just stay competitive in the world. And how do you say, like, high risk high reward, or I
Yeah,
don't know.
and
Yeah.
it's as corny as it may sound, it's true, but it's very true as well that digital first, and people need to not confuse that, because the likelihood is, rightly or wrongly, when people wake up, they go to a device and they're digitally in the digital world, and likelihood is then they're visiting social media, they're in emails, they're on the internet, and so this is a digital first world, and I think you really need to understand that, and how you can be relevant, particularly as I see this trend, particularly two things, agentic AI, which we've talked about as a separate conversation. I
Yeah.
think it's going to be huge in 2025, and I think social shopping will become more of a norm in 2025, and in 2026 and beyond, it'll be even huge. But this is the year to start paying attention to this stuff. And Dimi, this is why I wanted to have the conversation. Also, let some of the legal people within my community have a bit of an idea, and maybe get some thoughts created, some ideas from their side to be early adopters to what they could do on this. But really appreciate you sharing all your insights when it comes to the world of the rapidly fast moving world of social shopping. And I'll be really keen to get you back on, maybe in a few months' time or later in the year, to see what you're getting up to, what your next moves are, and how you're seeing things transform, particularly from a commerce and community perspective. But if people want to stay connected with you or learn more about you, what's the best place for them to sort of reach out?
I think they can just reach out to me on LinkedIn, Dimitri Leontidis. So you can find me there. I'm open to have any conversations. So it's and also to collaborate as well. Like, I'm really like this. This was what I was doing. Like, I was helping other people, become happy and become big on social media platforms. So this is kind of like where I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we are pro collaboration over here, and we're excited to have more conversations. Just want to say thanks so much once again. And for people who've been keeping an eye out on my socials, you'll see that the Legally Speaking podcast is trying to 10x this year. So we're going to be off to Dubai next month. So please do make sure you're following the Legally Speaking podcast and myself. We've got some exciting plans, some exciting content, and some more interesting LinkedIn lives coming this year. But thank you so much, Demi, for joining me today. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Rob. Thanks for having me. See you later.
Over and out, everybody.